Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another Five Nights at Freddy's Freddy Fazbear Friday Rific Faz Day. What I don't once again I don't know what to call it, but welcome back to another Freddy Fazbear Friday theme video, and more Secret of the Mimic stuff is on tap for today. So if you can't tell, I'm really excited for it. Can't wait to see what other truths we're about to find out with the Secret of the Mimic for the game that's coming out next month. Hopefully, I am not losing my mind as much as the last one. Because remember, last time we did a Secret of the Mimic, the last Five Nights at Freddy's Secret of the Mimic video we did. Can't talk. But the last Five Nights at Freddy's Secret of the Mimic video we did, let me talk and not say very quickly because we're not in a race here. But the last video we did with everything, we were losing our mind. It wasn't for clickbait, it wasn't for views or anything. But I was losing my mind because there was a common... Hey, shout out to you, Dakota. Also, we should be hearing the new alert as well. So Dakota, shout out to you for resubbing. And hopefully the new audio play and everything. I don't remember exactly what audio I have set up, but hopefully it did play. But seeing the new alert was a W. So shout out to you. Appreciate it. That's another thing I want to talk about before we get into the FNAF reaction. But like I was saying before, it was bye. Oh yeah, that's dope. Yeah, it was the bye Deadpool Wolverine song, which the fact that that's... Can we just take that for a second? That song, Bye from the Deadpool Wolverine, that song came out in the year 2000, right? Can we talk about that for a second? That music, that song came out in the year 2000, and it has never seen the light of day. It has never been popular, but now, because the Deadpool Wolverine song, it's now popular and gained a big traction. So it's just crazy. Also, 11 viewers. This is unbelievable. This is the most viewers I've had on stream. So shout out to everyone here. 16 viewers. What is going on right now? Once again, shout out to you. But there's so many things going on in my mind. This is the most streamed video, so I don't know what to say right now. But another thing I was going to say is that, as you can see by the title, this is a 1-year Twitch affiliate anniversary. Because to this day, on March 13th of 2024, we hit Twitch affiliate, which is crazy that it's already been a year since we've hit affiliate. We were able to do alerts, sub channel points, all this crazy stuff and everything. It's crazy that a year has already gone by. So I just want to take this a moment to say appreciate it. Appreciate everyone for the support and everything. Whether you have been here like Dakota since the very beginning, or someone who is just tuning in now or has been here for any length of time, I just want to say I appreciate you. Because I appreciate the support, goes a long way. But now that we got all that introduction stuff out of the way, let's get into the thing on tap that is what we're really here for, which is more Secret of the Mimic news for the new game that is coming out in June. Really excited for it. And yeah, hopefully I'm not losing my mind as much as last time. Because yeah, it wasn't for clickbait, wasn't for views or anything. I just was legitimately losing my mind because, well, I've been invested in the FNAF lore and FNAF universe since, its inception in 2014. And when you present me a crazy idea that makes me question my sanity, makes me question everything I've known for a decade at this point, I'm gonna go crazy.
In December 2024, we received a content update for Help Wanted 2, where Steelwool hid a bunch of puzzle pieces throughout the game. If you collected all of the puzzle pieces and put them together, a building would appear in front of you. When you walked up to the building, you were met with 4 numbers, 4625. When we first saw these numbers, everyone thought that that was going to be the release date of Secret of the Mimic, April 6th, 2025, until the Secret of the Mimic trailer came out, and we got the actual release date, June 13th, 2025. So if 4625 isn't the release date, then what do the numbers mean? Well, I think those numbers are the key to solving Secret of the Mimic, including who we play as, what's gonna happen, and how the game is going to end. Make sure to subscribe, and let's see if I can predict exactly what we're going to see in Secret of the Mimic 3 months before it comes out. Let's start.
Chat, since it does come out in June 13th, I guess this does pose a question. Would you want to see me play to Secret of the Mimic when the game comes out? I would want to do it. I would say the only caveat when it comes to that question is I hope it's not a PlayStation VR or any VR related game and everything, because I know when it comes to VR, it's not because I'm scared or anything like that. It's because VR games are a lot harder to stream because, you know, VR games take a lot more RAM and CPU and processing power. And, well, I stream on a budget as it is and everything, so I will not be able to deliver quality streams if it's a VR game and everything. But if it's like a PlayStation game, I would be totally down to stream Secret of the Mimic when the game comes out, so let me know.
With the building we saw in the Help Wanted 2 update. A lot of you might have seen this building and thought, what in the world am I looking at? And you might have thought this because we didn't really have much to go off of. We knew it was some sort of gift shop that was selling masks. We knew that it was associated with this logo and the letters MCM. And we knew because of the puzzle that there was some sort of factory either attached to it or located close by. A lot of this was brand new stuff that we've never seen before. But this stuff quickly started making sense once the Secret of the Mimic trailer came out 2 months later. In the trailer, we learn a bunch of stuff about the game. The game takes place in 1979, which is the earliest game we now have in the FNAF timeline. In it, we play as a Fazbear Entertainment employee being sent into an abandoned warehouse. This warehouse belongs to Edwin Murray, a contractor for Fazbear Entertainment who has apparently gone missing. This already answers a question from the Help Wanted 2 update. This factory-looking place in the background of the puzzle is Edwin's abandoned warehouse that we're going to be exploring in Secret of the Mimic. If you don't know already, Edwin Murray is a character who was introduced in the Tales from the Pizzaplex books, and those books basically tell us everything we need to know about him. We learn.
I wouldn't say everything. It says some things about him, but we still have a ton of questions. Main question, me and a lot of other people still ask to this day, and we still want to find this out, is Edwin the stand-in for Henry? Are they the same person? Because their backstories are quite literally parallel, and you're just asking for the comparison. It's cruel if they're not.
That Edwin was a very talented engineer, and his job was to turn Fazbear Entertainment mascot costumes into fully functioning animatronics. This is why throughout his warehouse you can see a bunch of mascot costumes all over the place. This is backed up by the official description for the game, where it states, "Enter the abandoned workshop of Murray's Costume Manor and unravel the mystery left behind by the reclusive inventor Edwin Murray." This one sentence solves yet another mystery from Help Wanted 2. The logo featured on the top of the building and on the puzzle is the logo for Murray's Costume Manor, MCM. This building is the entrance to Edwin's abandoned warehouse. This is interesting because Edwin's warehouse in the books was seemingly nothing like this. In the books, the warehouse doubled as a living space for Edwin and his son, but also a workspace where Edwin could build his inventions. The building was described as being extremely dirty and worn down. The name Murray's Costume Manor and the logo are also never mentioned in the books. In the games, it seems that Edwin's warehouse is almost acting similar to Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, where the public could come and visit the warehouse to see Edwin's inventions in person, featuring a gift shop where.
So I will say this, not to repeat myself from previous streams, because it's not like I'm saying it because, oh, I believe I'm right or I'm smarter than everyone else and everything. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I will preface what I said in the past Secret of the Mimic video where we did everything, of the reason why the times are a little bit different, because in the books it talks about how Edwin's factory facility they made the Mimic technology, the Mimic software, is very worn down. It's a wreck. By the time the Fazbear, Freddy Fazbear technicians go to the facility and everything, they see how it's a total wreck and everything. But in the game Seek of the Mimic, at least in the trailer and everything, it doesn't look like it's a wreck. It looks like it's way more clean, way more polished, and it doesn't look like it's a total wreck. And I preface that in saying, well, what if the time's a little bit different, right? Right, what if the time's a little bit different? Like, let's just say, I don't know if it was ever called out, but let's just say for a thought experiment, let's say in the books, Edwin creates the Mimic software, his son David dies, he infuses the robot with agony, as we know, and then he abandons the facility and leaves the Mimic to rot and die, whatever. He abandons the facility. Then let's just say, just a number, 50 years later, the Fazbear technicians come back to the facility and retrieve the Mimic software because Fazbear wants to use the Mimic software that Edwin created and use it for their own gain, for their own devices, and to be, well, for lack of a better term, selfish and greedy and money hungry. Right. But then you also can have this in the Secret of the Mimic game where instead of it being 50 years later, in my example, it can be the same day or a week or even a month later, right? You can have it still be Edwin creating the Mimic, abandon the facility, Phasma technicians go to the facility to retrieve the Mimic, and it not be a wreck and everything, and you can still have both at the same time, right? I don't know if this is true or not, but I just want to preface that because I know some people say, well, it can't be the same facility or it can't be the same facility at all because it's not a wreck. It's like, well, with the time, it's just different. I just want to preface that.
Where people could buy toys and masks of their favorite characters. This is further proven by this part of the trailer, where we access a computer that says Reset Welcome Show. Not only was there a gift shop, there was also a welcome show that would play for people who visited Murray's Costume Manor, featuring Edwin's animatronic characters. But, like we learn in the trailer, Edwin has apparently gone missing, and Fazbear Entertainment is sending us into his warehouse to retrieve one of his inventions, the Mimic, the character we saw at the end of Security Breach Ruin. But what we're being told in the trailer might not be completely true. In the trailer, we're being told that
one of our contractors, Edwin Murray, has gone missing, leaving our property abandoned in his warehouse. Your job is simple. Enter the warehouse and retrieve the technology that he was developing for us.
there's two key words that Fazbear might be lying about here. Quote, enter the warehouse.
Shocker, Fazbear lies about something. Right? Shocker.
And retrieve the technology that he was developing for us. In the story The Mimic from the Tales books, Edwin didn't make the Mimic for Fazbear Entertainment, he made it for his son, David. The Mimic wasn't something he was hired to build, it was something he built in his free time for his son. So if
Right, because, recap of the story and everything, I know I've said this numerous times, it feels like being a dead horse at this point, of how many times given a Cliff Notes summary of the Mimic book from the Fazbear Fright storyline. But, brief recap, Edwin is a genius inventor who is tasked to create, like, wood figurines and costumes into actual fully formed animatronics. Right? And he's genius at it. And the problem is, he has a son, David, who is either 4 or 5 years old. And it's a problem because he's very impressionable. And as a young son and everything, he wants a lot of time with his father and everything. And well, that's something that Edwin cannot provide his son because he's so busy with his work and everything to get around that. And so everyone can be happy. Edwin can continue working, doing what he does, being a genius inventor, and also keeping his son occupied. Edwin creates the Mimic software, the robot that mimics everything that David does as like a best friend to get David to be occupied while Edwin can go back to his work and everything. Right? So, brief Cliff Notes summary of the story. I know you've probably been hammered at home about that, but I just want to share that as well.
For us. In the story The Mimic from the Tales books, Edwin didn't make the Mimic for Fazbear Entertainment, he made it for his son, David. The Mimic wasn't something he was hired to build, it was something he built in his free time for his son. So if Fazbear is saying the Mimic was being built for them, then either the story in the books will be different from the story in the games, or Fazbear Entertainment is lying. Fazbear could have easily heard what the Mimic was capable of.
It's a kind of
Also, if I'm not mistaken, when it comes to building the technology for us, if I'm not mistaken, in the Dr. Rabbit storyline, I know, what a crazy name, but in the Dr. Rabbit storyline, another book that talks about the Mimic software, Fazbear Entertainment retrieves the Mimic software and they use it on their own accord. They use it to do whatever they want, use their own bidding. That's how we get stuff like Glitch Trap, Helpy, the possible Vanny network are all tied to the Mimic software, right? So making it for us because we took the software and repurposed it, reprogrammed it to do our bidding, do what we want because, well, we are money hungry.
prototype endoskeleton that can adapt to any costume and become any character.
And decided they wanted that technology for themselves. So now that Edwin is missing, they came up with the plan to enter his warehouse and steal it. But I don't think Fazbear will stop there. I think some of the most unique and beloved characters from Security Breach were all taken from Edwin's warehouse as well.
Most beloved characters from Security Breach. That immediately goes to Music Man and Sun and Moon. Which is interesting. Because I know we've talked about, and the theories have been out there, that Sun and Moon is connected to the Mimic. Because the teeth the Mimic has, the like prawned piece individual teeth the Mimic has, there's only one other character in this entire series who has that same set of teeth. And it's the Sun and Moon character. But also Eclipse as well. But you know who I'm talking about. Whatever. Sun, Moon, Eclipse. You know who I'm talking about. It's the same person.
At the end of the trailer, we get to see this giant animatronic that is essentially an early version of DJ Music Man. The fact that
Music Man!
this thing can be found in Edwin's
I'm sorry, I had to.
warehouse all the way back in 1979 tells me that DJ Music Man was likely originally built by Edwin, with Fazbear taking Edwin's Maestro Music Man and using it to create the DJ we all know and love decades later. The daycare attendant from Security Breach was also likely built by Edwin as well. MatPat put out a great theory a couple years ago where he pointed out that the teeth on Eclipse match perfectly with the teeth on the Mimic, along with the general
Yep! Show the teeth!
design of the characters looking similar. I think he was right, and we're gonna see the earliest version of the daycare attendant appear in Secret of the Mimic. These are just one or two examples.
And before you say, like, oh, no, don't look at the teeth because that's very obscure, you're really squinting and trying to make a connection that's not really there. You have to remember, this is a franchise where back in the very, very, very early days, when it was the FNAF 1, FNAF 2, FNAF 3, FNAF 4, where we were getting a game pretty much every month, the only way we got any sort of lore, any answers, any sort of resemblance of a story of what's going on, everything, how we figured it out was looking at Freddy buttons, Foxy toes, how many fingers are on Chica's hand and everything. Like, that's how we figured out any answers of lore of what's going on. So before you say, oh no, using teeth on the Mimic and Sun and Moon is very obscure, and it's like, why make that connection at all? When way back then, in the very early stages of this franchise, in order to get any answers, you were meant to look at buttons and toes and hands. So think about what franchise we're talking about here before you say, oh no, you're looking at very obscure details.
of Edwin's inventions likely being taken and reused by Fazbear Entertainment. But I don't think it'll stop there. I think other characters from Security Breach could have been Edwin's as well, such as the wet floor bots or even the staff bots.
Wet floor bots and staff bots I'm about to say Edwin. I was about to say Henry, but remember, Edwin and Henry have never been confirmed to be the same person. But staff bots and the mop bots are connected to Edwin. Let me think about that. Maybe. I mean, the only thing I can think of when it comes to staff bots and their history is we know Vanessa, or I guess also Vanny, really Vanny, used staff bots to do their bidding and rip animatronics and maybe also actual humanoid employees at the all-staff meeting. Maybe. So maybe the staff bots came from Edwin. And the mop bots would also be interesting. Because let's just say, like, if we're going to logic that out, and I'm going to take this to the absolute extreme, let's say this is right. Let's say this was the intent that Steel Wool made, that the staff bots and the mop bots are also tied to Edwin. Now, my question is, if that is true, then why come in Ruin, whenever you put on the Vanny AR mask, you walk up to one of the mop bots, you disassemble, you shut it down, and you hear like screams of crying children, as if they're like the souls being put to rest or silenced. Why would that be connected to Edwin then? That's my one counterpoint then. Is if the mop bots are connected to Edwin, then why come whenever we decommission or disassemble the mop bots, we hear like screams of crying children as if their souls being put to rest? Why would Edwin be connected to that? Also, that's my one question then.
Here's why. In the books, we learned that one of Edwin's first inventions was a robotic vacuum cleaner. And in the recent...
Is he actually named Henry, or is that just a name just put in? Either way, I love it.
Update to 5 Laps at Freddy's, you can actually see a billboard advertising it. It was called Hugs, which could very well mean that Edwin was also the inventor of Mr. Hugs from FNAF 6.
Wait. Let me repeat that again. Because if I'm not mistaken, I know who invented Mr. Hugs. And it damn sure was no Edwin.
A robotic vacuum cleaner. And in the recent update to 5 Laps at Freddy's, you can actually see a billboard advertising it. It was called Hugs, which could very well mean that Edwin was also the inventor of Mr. Hugs from FNAF 6.
Edwin was the inventor of Mr. Hugs from FNAF 6. Why would that be Edwin? Right? Why would that be Edwin? Because we know the FNAF 6 Pizzeria Simulator location was built by Henry as a trap. It was a way to lure all the animatronics into one place and burn it all down and ultimately end this entire Five Nights at Freddy's story. Obviously that didn't happen because fire never works, but that was the plan. And we know a bunch of animatronics that were first appeared in FNAF 6 were made by Henry because of the split jaw. You have the Walkstar animatronics, you have Lefty, which also had the split jaw mechanism, and we know Lefty was made to capture the puppet, which is Henry's daughter, Charlotte Charlie, right? And we also believe the Mediocre Melodies were also made by Henry because they have the same split jaw mechanism that the Rockstars do and Lefty does. So then, Mediocre Melodies are also being invented by Henry. So, every single animatronic, pretty much, is invented by Henry in FNAF 6. Why then would, like, number one create Mr. Hugs and those like trash in the game, why would they be invented by someone else then? If pretty much 99.9% of the animatronics we see in that game are invented by Henry, why would the 0.1% be invented by someone else then? Why wouldn't it just be invented by one person for everything? Right? Especially because we have the fans keep pointing to this connection that Henry and Edwin are the same person, not different.
But the reason he created this robotic vacuum cleaner was because Edwin believed in, quote, building useful machines that would change people's lives. He believed in automating life's most mundane tasks, and he was sure he could create robots to replace most household chores people didn't enjoy. This is why we see a robot in the trailer that was made exclusively to sort mail. This is Edwin automating a mundane task, and I think the wet floor bots and the staff bots in Security Breach also fit that description. In general, I think there's a ton of stuff that Steelwool is hiding from us in this trailer. In the books, one of
I will say, when it comes to Steelwool trailers, I hope they learned their lesson from Security Breach. Hide everything, especially when it comes to a story. Hide everything, because last thing you want to do is a repeat of Security Breach where you reveal too much of the story, where people are able to guess every twist, every turn, everything in the story, and then you change everything up, you remove everything, you add stuff in that's not polished whatsoever, and then we get this broken, jumbled mess of what we call a game, of what we got in Security Breach.
Edwin's job
Make the Secret of the Mimic story, and then stick with it no matter what.
was to turn the mascot costume versions of Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy into animatronics. So it's very possible that we're gonna see the original mascot versions of Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy in Secret of the Mimic.
All the originals in Secret of the Mimic I can see Freddy and Bonnie. I can see them because we know Freddy and Bonnie are the first two of the core four animatronics to exist. Because of Fredbear's Family Diner, there's just a golden Freddy and a golden Bonnie. And we know William Afton wore the golden Bonnie suit, and Henry wore the golden Freddy suit, and they're both Springlock suits. And we know Chica and Foxy, we're believed to think that they joined the cast later on, and then eventually became the core four that we know, Freddy, Foxy, Bonnie, Chica. Because we believe Chica was a Mika Melody from one of the books, how it references a bear with a southern accent to avoid copyright, Ned Bear, a happy frog, a pig with a southern accent, and like a weird bird girl, which weird bird girl being Chica. And then Foxy the Pirate came from somewhere, who knows, some pirate themed attraction, who knows, right? And it also connects because I've said this time and time and time again, but since I'm talking about it, might as well share it again, of how it's very reminiscent of what happened in real life with Chuck E. Cheese, where Chuck E. Cheese had two companies that merged into one, and some of the animatronics that were from the bankrupt company merged with Chuck E. Cheese and became part of the Chuck E. Cheese gang, even though they were never there since the very beginning. But because they were popular enough, they were able to join the Chuck E. Cheese roster. And we believe people like Chica and Foxy to be those animatronics. They're from a bankrupt franchise that was bought out by Fazbear Entertainment, William Afton, and then because they're popular enough, they then joined the cast and became part of the cast.
Might even look similar to the concept art that I talked about last year, featuring mascot designs of the core animatronics. I also think we're gonna see the original Fredbear and Spring Bonnie mascot costumes. In the trailer, you can see Fredbear's Family Diner posters hanging on the walls, the same Fredbear's posters we found in Security Breach. Also, in one of the offices, you can see a pizza box sitting on the couch. Although you can't see the top of the box, I can tell you from playing the demo of the game at PAX West that those pizza boxes have Fredbear's Family Diner logos on them. Fredbear's is clearly being teased in this game, and if you look at the poster featuring Bonnie, you can see that the design looks exactly like Glitch Trap.
like Glitch Trap. Hand-sewn suit, purple accessories. Yeah. From a aesthetic visual standpoint, I see it. But it also depends on what do you view as Glitch Trap. Is it actually William Afton? Is it a version of the Mimic? Is it digital code that was scanned in by the circuits that Fazbear Entertainment picked up for their VR game? So he's like an actual virus? What do you consider Glitch Trap to be?
Glitch Trap was the original mascot costume version of Spring Bonnie, and after 6 years of seeing the digital version of this character, I think we're finally gonna see this Bonnie mascot costume for the first time physically in this game, along with the debut of the Fredbear mascot costume in the same style as the poster. You can also see the cutout of an alligator character in the trailer, which could very well be the earliest version of Monty. Not only that, I think we'll also see a Monty mascot costume in the game as well. With this game taking place in 1979, there's so much potential to see the earliest versions of characters we've known and loved for the past decade.
And while I will say it will be very weird if there is a Monty appearance, it's the same thing of what I brought up with Music Man, where it's like another character that we know exists way later in the timeline because like stuff like the security breach, Ruin, right? That way future timeline is like in the 2020s and 2030s. But this game takes place in the 70s. So like characters like Music Man and Monty are characters that existed way earlier than we all thought. And then they now finally appear like 50, 60 years later for the first time. To me, you have to tie up those loose ends then.
But this game
It doesn't fit cleanly to me. That's all I'm trying to get at.
isn't about the old characters, it's about hunting down one of the newest ones. Fazbear Entertainment is clearly doing everything they can to retrieve the Mimic. And in the story The Mimic from the books, we see them doing the same thing. Once Edwin goes missing, Fazbear sends 3 employees to Edwin's warehouse, called Team A. Team A eventually does find the Mimic, but once they do, they each get brutally killed one by one. After Team A got completely wiped out, Fazbear did the common sense thing and just sent another team of people into the warehouse, Team B. While Team B was exploring the warehouse, they found audio recordings left behind by Team A. This is how Team B found out about the Mimic. But even with the audio recordings, Team B still ended up getting wiped out by the Mimic. In the books, that's where the story ends. Both Team A and Team B fail to retrieve the Mimic. But although that's where the book ends, I think that's where Secret of the Mimic begins. I think we're entering Edwin's warehouse after Team A and Team B. If you go to this part of the trailer, you can see an elephant mascot costume missing its arm. And if you brighten up the image, you can see a human arm hanging out of the costume, wearing the same Fazbear uniform as us, with the same long sleeve shirt and gloves. This is someone from the previous teams who tried to retrieve the Mimic, but failed. And I'm willing to bet that we're also going to find audio logs from those previous teams throughout the game, just like in the books. We're the team going in after Team A and Team B, but what's interesting is that this time we're not a team, we're just one person. After sending in teams of at least 3 people at a time, Fazbear is now only sending in one person. Not only that, this game will probably end with us successfully retrieving the Mimic. I highly doubt that we're getting this whole game just to witness another failed attempt. So who is...
I won't say spoiler alert, but bold prediction. I am willing to bet money on this. There's gonna be multiple endings. Multiple endings. And one of them is gonna be us being killed by the Mimic. Be another one of those teams.
Is this one person who's actually able to get the job done? To me, this feels like Fazbear
Okay, so the bots are gone now. Yeah, probably a good thing.
isn't messing around anymore. They know the...
I don't even know what that was about either. I'm just one person just streaming FNAF because I enjoy it.
One person who's capable of doing the job, and they're sending them in. Need more proof? Well, this is where we get to those 4 numbers, 4625. Like I said earlier, when we first saw these numbers, everyone thought it was the release date of the game.
4625. Before we get into the video, What could those numbers mean? 4625. 4 electronics, Freddy Fozzie Bonnie Chica. 6 games, FNAF 1 to FNAF 6. 2 Springlock suits, Golden Freddy, Golden Bonnie. 5 Five Nights at Freddy's. Got it, Illuminati.
But that didn't end up being the case, so what could the numbers mean? Well, look at the context of where we find the numbers. They're in front of the building on what looks to be a fancy-looking mailbox. And what do you usually see at the front of buildings on a mailbox? An address. The numbers are the address to Edwin's warehouse. And while I was researching for this video, I could have sworn I've seen a mailbox just like this before. So I looked up fancy mailbox on Google.
What? Fancy mailbox on Google? Alright. It was like 50 bucks. I checked the profiles to make sure someone was trying to get you banned or were trying to start a hate trend for some stupid ass reason. Yeah. I don't even know why we had like 30, 40 viewers at some point. That was definitely weird. But hey, I can't control it. I'm just one person. Plus, I don't believe I can get banned for that because it's not like I was the one who put these bots together and, you know, went to my stream to boost up my own numbers and self-inflate my numbers, right? It's not like I did it myself, so I don't think I can get banned. Otherwise, that'll be weird.
And this came up, an almost one-for-one copy of the mailbox in Help Wanted 2. So now that we've established that this is the address of Edwin's warehouse, there's one important question left. Why does this matter? Well, its importance lies in what we do with the address. After getting the numbers, if you go back over to the table and take off the Vanny mask, a van appears next to you. When the doors of the van open, you can see the Mixes machine sitting inside. In order to get the ending of the content update, you need to walk up to Mixes and input a code. The code you put in is the address to Edwin's warehouse. 4625. Once you put in the address, you see Mixes appear, the doors shut, and the van drives off. This could mean a lot of things. Maybe it's telling us that Mixes was originally made at Edwin's warehouse, 4625. But if you include the context of the van driving off, I think the more likely answer is Steelwool is showing us where Mixes is being driven to. Once we put in that address, the van drives off. And how does the Secret of the Mimic trailer begin? With the van pulling up to Edwin's warehouse, 4625. The ending of the Help Wanted 2 update is showing us how Secret of the Mimic will begin. This is further proof that Fazbear Entertainment isn't messing around this time. This one person isn't going in blind and unprepared like the previous teams, they're bringing Mixes with them. Mixes being around all the way back in 1979 was also heavily teased in the interview I did with Steelwool Studios.
That is deliberately supposed to be an older machine. So the Whopper being like a good example of like, hey, here's a supercomputer.
But it's old.
Before computers are like this big. The model just is not a modern computer.
No, it's not. It's very old.
It looks old.
I think Secret of the Mimic is going to show us why Mixes was built in the first place. But I think the more interesting question is, who do we play as in this game? Who created Mixes and brought it to Edwin's warehouse? Well, it has to be someone who's a genius engineer capable of creating something like Mixes, and it has to be someone who would be old enough in 1979 to do the job. I believe that person could be Henry Emily.
We play as Henry. Wouldn't that turn things on its head? We play as Henry. Steelwool's like, hey, and Scott's like, hey, you know how you guys compare Henry and Edwin? They're a stand-in. Their backstories are literally one-to-one with each other, right? How it's so eerily similar where you're just asking for the comparison. Yeah, we're gonna say that and have Henry go to Edwin's factory. Then my main question is, why have their backstories be literally one-to-one?
I think that could make sense because Henry is a genius engineer, just like Edwin, so he would more or less know how to use all of the equipment that Edwin left behind. And he would be old enough in 1979 to do the job. I originally thought we could play as Cassie's dad, but if Cassie's dad really is the Bonnie bully from the bite of 1983, he would at most be 15 years old in 1979, which is way too young. I also think it's very possible that Henry was the one who created mixes. In my last theory video, I explained why this could be the case. In Security Breach, we get to see Henry's labyrinth that he created to burn everyone to the ground in FNAF 6. And in Ruin, the door that leads us directly to mixes is in Henry's labyrinth. Not only that, if you go through the door, you're met with what looks to be an extremely old staircase that leads right to the room with the mixes machine. Why is the room with mixes directly connected to Henry's labyrinth? Well, I think it might be because Henry had something to do with mixes. To summarize, after Edwin Murray went missing, Fazbear Entertainment discovered the Mimic and came up with a plan to steal it. But after sending in two teams of people, Team A and Team B, who never made it out alive, they realized this wasn't a job for a regular employee. They needed one of their best engineers to step in, Henry Emily. Henry isn't going into that warehouse empty-handed though. He would then create Mixes, a supercomputer equipped with an antivirus that would help take down the Mimic. Henry then loaded Mixes into his van and drove to Edwin's abandoned factory, where he would use Mixes to successfully take down the Mimic all by himself. This is one of those theories that will immediately be proven right or wrong in the first 5 minutes of Secret of the Mimic, so it feels like a big swing. But I really do like the idea of the 4 numbers being an address, and by putting that address into Mixes, Steelwool is showing us where Mixes is being taken, and how Secret of the Mimic begins. I also think us playing as Henry would make sense, but it's very possible that we could be playing as just a random employee who happened to be the one person who took down the Mimic. We could also very well be playing as Cassie's dad, but that would mean either the Bonnie bully in the Bite of 83 is way older than we thought, or Steelwool's gonna have to do a bit of retconning. Either way, subscribe if you—
Wouldn't be the first time this series does any retconning, but I will say when it comes to the whole— hold up. I will say when it comes to the whole, we play, like I said before, like we play as Henry in the Secret of the Mimic game. Like my brain just can't get over that. Like, why? Why is it Henry? Because, need I remind you, Henry and Edwin's stories are quite, like, you think I'm, like, joking when I say, like, you know, it's a 1-to-1 comparison. They are very similar. Like, no. Like, I'm not joking when I say that. Like, it quite literally, you can make an argument, like, it's an alternate universe. Like, it is that close, that similar, right? Like, example, Edwin is a genius inventor who one of his creations is taken in by their child. Their child then dies at a very young age, and said robot creation that took after their child starts reminding the grieving father of their dead child. The father then beats the living heck out of it and infuses it with rage and agony, and then abandons its creation. Right? Edwin does that with David and the Mimic. Henry does that with the Charlie bot after his daughter Charlie died. Like, it quite literally is the exact same backstory. Where it's cruel, where like, it's cruel that you have a pretty much 1-to-1 backstory. Because you're just asking for the comparison. You're just asking people to say, yes, Henry and Edwin are the same person, just like the book standing for Henry or something like that. Right? You're just asking for the comparison then, because why then would the characters be so similar otherwise? Right? That's my problem with it. So I'm hoping that Henry is not the character we play as in Secret of the Mimic game. I'm hoping it's not Henry, because my brain, everyone else's brain will lose it then. That Henry is going to Edwin's factory to retrieve an Edwin creation, when since the very beginning we have assumed that Henry and Edwin are the same person. That's quite a way to reveal to the fans that, yeah, they're kind of not the same person, even though they have the same backstory. Whoops, sorry. So, that's quite a way to defy the fan base. We'll see what happens. But I will say again, like I said earlier, Steel Wool, if that is what it is, if that is your intention, that's what the game is. That we do play as Henry. Stick to it. All right? Stick to it. Stick with your guns, right? Don't change it. Don't. This is the story you had in mind. Just run with it. Right? Just run with it. Do not change the story. Do not pull a repeat of Security Breach where you have one story in mind. A trailer shows that. And then theories come out, people theorize, and then people are able to piece together all the endings, all the twists and everything. And then you come out and say, well, damn, people figured out all the twists, all the endings. This game's all about lore and mystery and, not really find any details or answers. So we kind of have to change the story on the fly as we go, right? And then make a story that is convoluted and confusing just to keep the illusion that this franchise is not being solved, right? And then look what happened. Look how ridiculed, and I was one of them, look how bullied Security Breach was on launch. Because Steel Wool did not stick with the story they had in mind. They were cowardly, and they changed the story multiple times over because they could not accept the fact that people solved the answers before the game came out. Do not do another Security Breach. That is me begging to Steel Wool. Do not do a repeat of Security Breach. If you have a story, stick with it. Right? The game will come out so much better, so much more polished. And sure, people still have problems with the story or the confusion. Sure, of course, it's FNAF at the end of the day. But I promise you, it'll be so much better if the game is polished than a game that is unpolished, confusing, and broken like Security Breach. Because effectively, Security Breach is ruined, right? And I'm not just saying that because the ruined DLC, but no, just as a whole, you think of Security Breach, you think of a Cyberpunk 2077 game that was broken on launch, that had a ton of bugs, ton of game-breaking glitches to the point where it was unplayable, right? That is the identity. That's like the public image of Security Breach. It is that bad. But, we've played Security Breach on stream, a full playthrough last year. And sure, we had some issues here and there and everything, but it was nothing. If you compare what we went through, what we played, compared to what it was on launch and everything, it's complete night and day. The game is way more playable, way more responsive. It's still not great, but it is way more responsive than what we got on launch. But do people know that? Do people care about that? No. What they saw was a broken game on launch, and that's how people will always view Security Breach. So do not repeat this, Steel Wool. Do not. So I'm begging you, do not have a repeat of Security Breach with this Secret of the Mimic game. If you have a story in mind, stick with it. Do not change the story for the sake of changing it and remove all this dialogue, all this hidden Easter eggs and mystery. Do not cut it and then add a bunch of unnecessary stuff just to confuse and gaslight the audience. Don't do that. Don't do that. If you have a story in mind, stick with it. It will go over so much better for you. Because remember, not to keep souring people's hype and my own hype for the Secret of the Mimic game, but I'm just going to say the truth for a second. This is Steel Wool's first game that they created from scratch since Security Breach. Right, let's go down the catalog of games that Steel Wool's made ever since getting the new ownership of FNAF, if you will, ever since Scott Cawthon retired. They open with VR Help 101, which is a remaster version of the games we've already played. So, a remaster. So, okay, that doesn't count. And then you have FNAF AR, Special Livery, which was not made by Steel Wool. And then that was a game that was promptly a move from the Google Play App Store, and it's a game that is never talked about again. Like, even the developers themselves, you go to their website, they say like, oh, these are all the games that we've worked on, we've developed. No mention of FNAF AR Special Delivery whatsoever. Like, the developers themselves even want to abandon it. So, that doesn't count. Security Breach, which enough said there. Ruin, which is a DLC, right? So, DLC, not a full-on game. And then you have Help Wanted 2, which, very similar to Help 101, the VR game, it's a remaster of stuff that was already pre-existing. So that doesn't count. And you have Into the Pit, which was a game made by either Mega Cat Studios or Big Cat Studios. It's one of the two. It's Cat Studios something. Big Cat or Mega Cat Studios, it's something like that. Obviously not Steel Wool. So, of these most recent FNAF games, a game that was made from scratch by Steel Wool is Security Breach, and now this. And I, for the love of God, do not want a repeat of Security Breach. I don't want it to be broken. I do not want a game like Security Breach where it comes out, it's broken, but then a year later, it's now polished, it's now playable. But at this point, you lost all the hype, you lost all the traction. Nobody cares the game is fixed at this point, because at the point when people did care about the game on launch, what they saw was a broken product. And that's what matters. That's just the truth. So I'm hoping Secret of the Mimic is not only good, but is not broken. So yeah, do not be worried, Steel Wool. Do not. If all these theories, all these videos are accurately predicting the story, all these twists, then let it be. Keep it, right? Keep the twists, keep the turns, keep the product and build off of it. Maybe add stuff as well on top of it, but don't take stuff away. That's my PSA to you.